What's good? Let's do the daggone thing. I am Sharon Nyree Williams, and welcome to my podcast. I'm coming to you live from Kent, Washington, by way of Seattle, Washington, which is about 30 minutes away. For those of you who don't know where the heck Kent, Washington is, this is my very first podcast, and I want to be honest, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just trying to try it out and see if it works for me. I am a storyteller, which means I tell stories in various genres from movies, film. Movies are films, so that doesn't make sense. But theater, spoken word, some people call it spoken word, I call it poetry. Um, any way I can, any way it moves me, I make it work. So I am a storyteller. That's what I like to call myself. And I'm an arts administrator. For those of you who don't know me, what that means is I run a mid-sized organization called the Central District Forum for Arts and Ideas. We present and produce, develop black artists, black performances to share with diverse audiences the black experience. I'm also on the Seattle Arts Commission. I'm on the board for Cornish College of the Arts. I'm on the board for Langston, which is another performing arts um, nonprofit, and that's just some of the things I do, so you can know a little bit about me, and just know, like, why are you listening to this chick? Who is she? What has she got going? I was born in North Carolina, went from North Carolina to Delaware to school, historically black college and university, Delaware State University, Hornet Pride. Then I landed here in Seattle in 2000 and went to Seattle University and got a Master's of Fine Arts in Arts Leadership. Red Hawks, Pride. So that's what I do. So I like to help the black voice be heard. That's one of my purposes in life. I feel as though I want to be exactly like Dr. Maya Angelou and share my stories with the world. But today I'm kicking off this podcast with the subject of depression. I know, who in the heck starts their first podcast with something like depression? I do. Why? Because yesterday I went to an event around depression. Dr. Janice Lovelace did a presentation at the Northwest African American Museum, and it was the first time I attended a talk about depression. I have been battling depression myself for at least, I think, 4 to 5 years, and so I was interested to go and hear this conversation. But what happened was, immediately after the conversation, I ran to my car, and I have a couple poetry plus CD albums out. One is called The Consciousness of Love, and track 6 is Amazing Me, which talks about my battle with depression. So I'm gonna let you hear that right quick. So check it out, and then I'll come back and talk more about what I learned at the workshop and how I feel about depression. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. This is just basically me telling you about me. That's it. All right, check it out. The time had come and I couldn't help but think maybe there wasn't anything wrong with me. Maybe I just needed to take a long nap and everything would be okay. I sat in the room with white walls staring at the examination table. The nurse went through all of the routine medical checks. Then she handed me a piece of paper and told me to answer the questions while I wait for the doctor. Generally, when they hand me a document to complete, I start at the top, write in my name, contact information, and begin to make my way down the page. This time, I skipped the top and went straight to the questions. My answers? Yes. 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 I guess so. Yes. Before the doctor even entered the room, I had confirmation. I had a form of depression. I don't think depression hurt me. I think identifying that I was depressed saved me. I traveled in this space on Earth in a dark cloud of life. At the time, I blamed it on my job. It wasn't what I felt as though I was put on earth to do, and by doing it every day, I felt as though it sucked the life out of me. But how is this so when I didn't even know I was depressed? I didn't know what the symptoms of depression were. So how could I have allowed something, or shall I say a situation, suck anything out of me? It took a friend who wouldn't stop telling me something was wrong with me. It took a situation to where it was time to support a friend at a major milestone, and me not wanting to be a part of it for me to realize something was wrong with me. It took me being so angry to go somewhere and be somewhere doing something that I love to do on a Sunday for me to ultimately look in the mirror and say, "What is wrong with you?" That moment in time made me realize that it wasn't the job, but it was something within this body we often refer to as a temple that was wrong. It's at that moment that I realized I wasn't just angry this one time, but I stayed angry. I was the ultimate mad black woman. And to ease my soul each day, I would rush to get home to drink the grapes that were especially made for me. It was a time when being alone and in solitude in the dark for days actually made me happy. This may be okay every once in a while, but not as frequent as I was doing it. When sleep is maybe 2 or 3 hours in the night and a few more on the weekends, it was a time that depression grabbed me. It had a hold on me, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where it came from. How could it have gotten to me? It grabbed me when I least expected it. It slowly made its way into my everyday life. It moved within my body, inside my head, and through my heart. It was the stare within my eyes, the smile and laughter that I now had to work at, and it lived in the evil that can be a part of me. Depression creeped into my soul with no warning, no rationale, and definitely no justification for changing me. Maybe depression grabbed me because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I had forgotten the ways in which I was supposed to go. I had pushed aside my childhood teachings and believed I could do this thing called life by myself. I'm independent in every sense of the way, and I don't need this or that to make it through. I'm strong and I got this. I can't be broken. Wake up. This is not you. This is not who you were meant to be. You deserve much more. You deserve the life you are meant to live. So wake up and do what you have to do to get back to who you are. Cry if you have to. Pray if you need to. Ask for help from those who love you. They got you. Depression got you, but it's not going to keep you. Your soul is too pure. Your spirit is too fierce. Your love is strong, and your path of life is too clear. Depression? It can't live here. Wow, that track takes me back. Um, wow, it's called "Amazing Me," and it's on the Consciousness of Love album. And I just want to give a shout out to the composer of the music is Mr. Joey Walbaum. and he's also the excellent cat that's playing on the keys. And then on drums we had Davey Nuvos, and on upright bass we had Bryn Plummer, and it was recorded at the Jack Straw Cultural Center here in Seattle. And just a quick story about Bryn coming onto the project. That day there had been a mix-up with the other person that was supposed to play the bass, so they weren't able to make it. And we were in the studio, and the clock was ticking, and Davey and Joey jumped on the phone and contacted Bryn, and he just happened to live in the neighborhood. He just happened to be home. It just happens to be his son's birthday party, and he asked his wife if could he leave for a second and come play on this track. So much appreciation to all of those guys because they were really great to work with, and the music just sounds phenomenal. Um, but anyway, back to the topic of depression. So I'm not an expert on depression. I just been battling it, and as you can see in the track, I'm trying to live that life of depression doesn't live here. But the reality of the fact is, depression is with me every day. It's a battle every day, and right now is a battle that's up front for me because I just recently went off my medication last week for a few days, and I'm hoping to get back on it soon. But being off of it makes me really nervous, and it's a medical thing around insurance that's holding me up. But as soon as I can, I'll get back on it. But at the same time, while I'm not on it, I'm being very cautious of my mood, my feelings, and things of that nature. So, for those of you that's out there, light a candle, pray, whatever you do, for me, that I don't let it attack me the way it has in the past, and maybe I don't need to get back on a medication. But I'm there in a place where I know that it's like my sinus and my allergy medicine. I have to take it every day, or something will shift in me. But anyway, enough about me. This is all about me. But I took the time to look up what the definition of depression is, and I pulled it off the Mayo Clinic's website. And it says depression is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest, also called major depressive disorder or clinical depression. It affects how you feel, think, and behave and can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems. You may have trouble doing normal day to day activities, and sometimes you may feel as if life isn't worth living. More than just a bout of the blues, depression isn't a weakness, and you can't simply snap out of it. Depression may require long term treatment, but don't get discouraged. Most people with depression feel better with medication, psychological counseling, or both. So I have to say that I have had psychological counseling, and I plan on getting back in it because I'm going through some things right now, and I think it would be key for me to get back in and talk to someone. And I'm not telling you this because I'm wearing a badge of honor and being a person that battles depression. I'm telling you this so if you know someone that may be battling depression, that you can be a support for them, or if you yourself is battling depression, maybe this will convince you or shine put a shine on some things that you've been going through that may want you to go visit your doctor and just see what symptoms you have and see if it's treatable. So that's the only reason why I'm doing it. I do not um, shout out from the rooftops that I am depressed, but or that I battle this disease. But I do know that coming from a black family where we didn't like to talk about our issues, I think that I can help other people by discussing what I go through and what I know. So yesterday, for the first time, I went to a talk about depression, and it was Dr. Janice Lovelace, and she was speaking about depression as an educational type tool through the at the Northwest African American Museum, and I like to thank all of them for doing that. And I'm just going to share with you some facts that she shared with us during her presentation yesterday. And while I'm sharing these things, I'm just going to let you know what I'm thinking. And maybe when this is all over, you listen to my podcast. If you have some questions or some things to say, you just hit me up and let me know. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, where am I at? Twitter, my website, or what have you. But let's just have the conversation. I think my whole thing about being a storyteller is that I can change the world one story at a time. And so let's do it. Let's have the conversation. I'm not scared of it, even though I am in a scary place right now when it comes to battling this disease. So some interesting things that Dr. Lovelace shared with us yesterday was how racism plays a part in casualty and access to treatment for African Americans in the community. And on my podcast, you'll hear me say black more than you hear me say African American, and that's just because that's how I identify. I think people are can identify however they want to. I identify as black. I think there are African Americans in America right now. Um, but people that actually was born or raised in Africa or have African parents and now live in the U.S. So I see them as true African Americans, and I see myself as black. But anyway, neither here nor there. Um, and so it was interesting to me to hear the role of racism and how that plays a part because right now in America or across the country or what have you, seems like racism is back at the forefront, and not that it ever left, but that more and more people are talking about it, and so how that factors in to how some of us are responding to racial issues can like be a part of depression, stress, abuse, neglect, grief, and loss. Um, is also things that can contribute. And when I went into counseling for the first time, so my plight was basically I felt as though I might have been depressed. I went and spoke to my my primary physician, and she had me take a test, which confirmed that I was depressed. And then we talked it out, and I got on medication, which was the first phase. And then as I was battling depression on and off, then some things happened. A friend of mine died, my dog died, and I just went into this deep depression around grief and loss. And so that's when I first went and sat down and talked through to a therapist. And it was about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks that I went to the therapist and stayed on my medication. And then when me and my therapist had a breaking point, she was like, I don't think you need to come back right now, but you know that I'm here. So the door is always open to go back. And so I identify times when I need to go back. And right now, I really do need to go back as soon as I get this insurance thing straightened out. Um, she said about 40 to 50% people can inherit this in their family, so that's something to be aware of. And and it was interesting to hear that at twice as many women as men get this disease, and she didn't have she was like there's no rationale for it, but how we carry things and how we handle things is probably that women are better at reporting it, where men they go out and use their aggression and things of that nature, and don't feel as though they need to talk to anybody or that it is depression. So that's something to look at. And the other part, while I was sitting in there listening to her speak, I also was thinking about a friend that I recently had a conversation with, and starting to like try to diagnose, right? But I'm not a doctor. But I started thinking that maybe this is something he should look into. But how do you tell a friend that? And I know I'm just going to pick up the phone and call him or have him come meet me and talk about it a little bit more. Because I don't think this is something we should ignore. And I think that he has some true trigger signs to where he might be going down that path. Um, but let's try to nip it in the butt while we can. So what does depression look like? So for me, it looked like uh, I was angry. I was so angry. Like I would go to work and I would try to lock myself in my office so nobody could come and talk to me. And anytime something happened, anytime something small happened that might have been a little bit bad, I was triggered, and I found myself, now that I look back on it, I find myself that every day I was having a venting session. And venting for me means I'm calling my sister or I'm calling one of my close friends, and I'm talking to where if it was on the radio or on TV, you wouldn't have heard nothing but beep, 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 because every other word was profanity. And so I was having those sessions, and then I was, I didn't want to go and do much. I was still doing things, but I would rather sit at home and chill and lay in the bed and watch TV and hang out by myself. But then I could sleep during the day. I couldn't sleep at night. It was kind of weird. And then and things that I loved just didn't interest me at the time. I didn't feel like writing. I didn't feel like celebrating a friend when he got accepted into the Sundance Film Festival and everybody was going, and I was like, I don't want to go. And that was the main trigger when my friends started shouting me out and say, "What's wrong with you?" Um, and then I forced myself to go. And then as soon as I came back, I realized I needed to go to the doctor because there's no reason why I wouldn't want to do that because that was something that I loved. Eating disturbance, well, I think I just ate more than what I was supposed to eat, junk all the time. I remember this moment where um, I needed wine. Like I was drinking like at home by myself bottles of wine, but I was mad at the grocery store because the grocery store had moved everything around the last time I had went there. So I was cussing and fussing and venting about the grocery store, but I needed a bottle of wine. But my pride wouldn't let me go to the grocery store because I was mad at them. And I came home and I was talking to my sister, and I was having one of my venting sessions. Then I got off the phone with her, and then I opened up one of my cabinets, and there was a bottle of wine. And I swear that for the first of my life, I heard like the angels sing, wah, 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 wah. And I grabbed that bottle of wine and I ran to the couch and I hugged it. I just hugged it. Yeah, something was seriously wrong with me. And then I called my sister, and it's the middle. I called her back, and I knew she was going to bed because she lives in North Carolina, so 3 hour difference. And she was like, "Girl, you got issues." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." But I drunk some of that wine that night. Suicide is something that that aids or is a part of depression as well. But one thing she talked about, Dr. Lovelace, was not just not suicide in the sense of someone doing harm to themselves, but suicide and someone getting someone else to kill them. So basically, like a person that's depressed will go do something or wave a gun at a police officer that a police officer would kill them or something to that effect. So being aware of that. And so then she talked a little bit about therapy, right? Medication, antidepressants, um, and all that, and therapy, and a combination of that, and things of that nature. And like I said, um, I'm on medication, even though I haven't taken it, and I'm out of it right now. But I do medication mainly, and then at the times where I feel as though I need therapy, then I do them both at the same time. And that's just a lifestyle that I've just come to know. Um, and then she also talked about some other things around depression, and that's anxiety, excessive worrying, and you can't sleep. Um, what are you really worrying about? Just things going over and over and over in your head, and the obsession of things. And sometimes I did that too, right? Where something happened to me during the day, and all night it like replays in my head, right? So I can't sleep. Um, and sometimes the medication is supposed to help you sleep. And the thing about this medication, about antidepressants, and I want to say this and be clear, is that I'm not saying that anybody should go and get on antidepressants and go um, tell your doctor that Sharon Nyree Williams said this. But because I'm not a doctor, so I'm not having this conversation to tell you what to go do. I'm just having this conversation so that you know what I went through, and maybe you can acknowledge it for someone in your life, or just have a better understanding if you have a friend that's going through it. Um, but the thing about antidepressants is that they're not addictive, so it's nothing like I don't. There shouldn't be a time where I'm like, I'm going to take instead of taking my one, I'm gonna take three or four, and that's going to make me feel better. It's just not how that particular medication works. So I just wanted to let that be be known. And other things is PTSD uh, is also lumped in with depression, and you want that's from that trauma that you've gone through. You got feelings that you wanna and thoughts that you keep playing, whether that's from being molested or abuse, maybe that's war, things of that nature. Um, I don't battle PTSD, um, and so I just want to say that, and I'm not going to talk more about it because I can't relate to that at this point in time. Even though I think my father battles that, but as Black people, we also battle trauma with um, it's funny because having this listening to Dr. Lovelace talk about the trauma in the Black community and how slavery is still eating at us. And it's because one of those reasoning behind it is because we're constantly being traumatized over and over and over again, whether it's from the days of the civil rights movement, where you have situations like Emmett Till, to where you move to the present day and you have situations like Trayvon Martin, or any Michael Brown, or any of those type issues. Um, then we're constantly being traumatized, and it's constantly bringing up those thoughts, which then makes it one of those things where Black people are continuously reliving. We're having PTSD, where we're moving through those we're being physically ill. Um, our body is breaking down because of the trauma. Um, so just be aware of that. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just something that we all have to know about. And my dog, Duchess, just bust in the room. So if I get interrupted, it's because she likes to take. There it is. Like she just jumped on the bed, so she likes to take over on, and she likes to make sure I get off my computer. Um, so some other things that happens when battling things like depression is it can heart disease, alcoholism, strokes, diabetes, mental health, headaches, stomach aches, back aches, all of those things relate. So it's just we have to be very aware of our own bodies and what our bodies are going through, because it can trigger other things. You're depressed, you're not eating right, and then that triggers something else, or you're highly stressed and your blood pressure go up. So just being aware of and constantly being aware of your bodies and what you're doing. Right now, one of the things I'm trying to do more of, and I've been doing it since September, since I was an athlete as a kid. I'm now doing boxing. Right? I'm not. No, I'm not fighting anyone. Ain't nobody got time for that. I ain't fighting anyone. I like my face the way it is. I have some piercings that don't need to be hit by anyone, but I am going through boxing training, and so I work out with my boxing coach, Coach T at Arcaro Boxing, and twice a week. And then sometimes if I'm going through something, I walk in and I say, "Man, it's one of those days." And then instead of her telling me to do a specific task, she'll say, "Go get on the bag and just wail on it." Now, the secret to that is that's even harder than her having me do an exercise, because you put all this energy in just trying to kill this bag. And the first time I was like, okay, I ain't gonna say that no more. But it does help, and finding different ways to help you deal with the things that are happening with your body. So But that's basically what she talked about. The other thing that was interesting to me, and it has nothing to really do with her, Dr. Lovelace talk, but it had to do with observation of who's in the room, right? And for this particular discussion, it was all women. It's about 11 women, and then a gentleman came in towards the end, but I think it goes back to what Dr. Lovelace said, and in the beginning of her talk when she talked um, about 40. What? Wait a minute. Let me find the note. That twice as many women than men are diagnosed with depression, and that's that. So I think it's in the proof is in the room, right? Of who's in the room, who's willing to come to the conversations, to have it. Being depressed does not mean that you're weak. I just want to say that. I don't feel like, okay, I can say, like, now that I acknowledge that I battle depression, I don't feel as though I'm weak. Um, but at first, it was one of those things I had to deal with. Like, why me? What am I going through this? Why am I going through this type thing? Um, I thought something was wrong with me, and yes, something was wrong with me. So how do I continue to battle it? And so um, but it doesn't mean that I'm less of a person. I still do all the things that I said in the beginning, about me being a storyteller, me being on this board, me running this organization. I'm able to do that even better because I acknowledge my my fight with depression. Um, so yeah, that's basically all I have to say today. I just want to just start the conversation, whether it's with me directly through one of my social media outlets, or if it's with between you and your friends and your family or what have you, of just having this discussion around. Let's just talk about what it means to be depressed. Um, and then, making sure people are getting the help that they need. It is treatable. You do not have to go through this by yourself. Um, I'm sure there's some support groups out there as well. Um, I'm sorry I don't have that information because my support group is Team Sharon, and that's some of you who know what Team Sharon is, which is my supporters for my artistry, my mentors, my advisors, all of those people that just come to my shows, Team Sharon, who keeps me going, who calls me out when things aren't going well or when I'm not doing something, but just learning that balance for myself. What makes me happy? Therapy helped me realize that if I didn't do art, I wasn't going to make it. I will probably stay in a state of depression if I didn't do my art along with my job. So I don't want you to have to go through that, and I want you to learn, you or your friend or whomever, to know right now that what the symptoms look like. What are some of the things? I didn't give you a very medical detailed look because I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I don't know anything about that stuff. All I know is what I did was I had friends shout me out, as stated in Amazing Me. They shouted me out. I went to the doctor. My doctor gave me some medication. I went to therapy, and I've been on this ride for the last 4 or 5 years. So that's what I did. Um, Please go out there and seek some information if you feel as though you or someone you know have symptoms of depression. Okay, that's it for the Sharon Nyree Williams podcast this time around. I don't know what the next one is going to be about because I didn't know I was going to do this one. But I hope you enjoyed it. Again, you can contact me at Sharon N. Williams, that's Sharon with 1R.com. That's through my website. I'm on Facebook as Sharon Nyree Williams. In parentheses, it says Nganzo. Um, and I'm on Twitter as Ambitious, capital SNW, my initials. And I'm on Instagram, I think, as Sharon Nyree Williams again. So look me up, hit me up, let me know. To all my Team Sharon folks, love you. Until we meet again, deuces. Do the daggone thing. All right, peace.